Well, I made it to the end, and this right here is the final chapter of Raising Albion. Before it begins, there's a few pieces I wanted to share and just let you know the pieces on my heart that want to come through before we kind of start this last chapter properly. Because at the very end of it all, I'm not going to thank anyone in the docuseries. There's not going to be a montage. We're just going to fade to black and kind of drift into the end, and then perhaps at some point down the track, the next chapter of it all. So what's on my heart? Making this docuseries was by far the hardest part of this entire journey. Being in ceremonial mindset and just a state of mind that was in initiation, while also trying to organize files and design thumbnails and make a meaningful story from all of these clips and songs that I had on my iPhone was challenging. I did it all on my iPhone. The entire docuseries was done during the journey on my iPhone, 1:30 a.m. in the morning, freezing and shaking and trying to somehow make something that I could offer to the community so that you could feel like you were a part of it, and you could feel like you could be a part of this kind of stirring in a meaningful way. And for me, this docuseries was how I said thanks to everyone who contributed gear, funding, who carried my bag, who just supported in the group that kind of originally formed to get this thing moving. I genuinely could not have done this without everyone who contributed and brought their presence in and became a part of this building, growing, beautiful energy. I could not have done it. Genuinely, it could not have happened without everyone who contributed. So the docuseries has been my thanks. It's been my commitment to bring you along for the ride. And I hope that you felt that in some way. I hope you felt like you've been in the thick of it with me. I hope you felt like you've got to experience the aisle in a meaningful way. And I hope that this feels close to home for you and not just like some distant guy, Australian, walking the length of the aisle. I hope this feels close to home for you, because for me, amongst all the prayers in it, one of them was that this wasn't just me doing a thing for me. It was also a call for you to do yours, however it looks, whatever form it is, and I hope that you've felt that stir inside you, that growing inspiration to devotionally meet the call that lives in you, or the call that finds you when it comes. So my prayer is that it has felt close to home and not far away for you, that you've felt like you're a part of this in some way, some meaningful way, and that then translates into your moment or your journey or your devotional act, which doesn't have to be walking. There's a million different faces that devotion has. So that's been underneath all of this as well. Not just like entertainment in any way, actually, but more of like a revealing so that perhaps you also can meet yours when the moment comes. This last chapter will take us all the way to the end of the aisle, all the way to the end of the spine of Albion, to the last vertebrae is how I think about it. And I also speak just kind of in whispers about some of the other endings that have happened as part of this journey for me. So there's just a little moment where I name some of them, and I haven't shared all of the pieces in this docuseries because I've really been in the thick of the aisle and the country and just the tangible, visceral, challenging reality of every day. But there's been some really huge changes that have occurred in my life, and I'm here in Manchester, a new home, a new city afterwards, and I'm settling in, and I feel like this walk and this journey has come to has brought me to a really big ending, and also at the same time a really beautiful new chapter, a new beginning. So I really hope you enjoy this final chapter in the Raising Albion docuseries. I'm Matthew. I'm walking the spine of Albion, stirring cultural renaissance and calling forward the emerging leaders of this age.
The tables have started to turn. Talking about revolution. Oh, no.
From the middle of winter to the middle of spring, and it's getting pretty obvious now, although here in Scotland the days are warm, hot even, and the nights are still quite cold really. I've spoken a lot about my grandfather and how this journey, this pilgrimage, was inspired in the moments following his funeral as I lay on my bed, grieving and just trying to comprehend in some way that he had gone, that he's passed. And it was in those moments that I heard the sacred call to do this thing. But what I haven't spoken about at all actually is my grandmother, Edna Mickeljohn. These are Mickeljohn lands up ahead, northern Scotland. The Mickeljohn clan comes from here, my grandmother's line, deeply woven into the story of northern Scotland. My grandma turns 93 this year. She's 92 right now. She has always been a fierce woman. Yeah, there was always a strength in her that I admired, and I think I have come to admire it more and more as time's gone on. You know, she lived through wars, and she lived through famine, and she lived through poverty, and she was part of that generation that became really good at working with what they had and minimizing their spendings and minimizing their use of food and recycling resources and that sort of thing. My grandmother's always been really good at cooking and sewing and using things in different ways. So I suppose as I walk, what I'm feeling into is how it's not just that I lost my grandfather and that our family lost one of our dear family members, but my grandmother is a widow now. My grandmother lost the love of her life, the man that she spent 65 years with. And so while this whole journey has, in a way, on one level, been a kind of a send-off for my grandfather, a final bow in his direction, it also feels like I'm coming into the lands now where my heart is feeling my grandmother, who's still here with us. My grandmother was the person who, when I was 12, about to turn 13, she pulled me aside. She spent 6 weeks with me, and she initiated me into our family line. She asked me to turn our family tree, which she had accumulated in all these documents and just piles of paper, piles and piles of paper, and turn it into a kind of a diagram, into a computer program. And I did that. I spent hours and hours with her for weeks on end, turning this family tree that she'd accumulated over a lifetime into a coherent family tree on the computer. And even though the task itself was quite menial, like chop wood, fetch water, put this name from the paper onto the computer, even though it was quite simple, it was an initiation into our family line, into our ancestry, and it remains the most significant ancestral initiation I've ever had. My grandmother took me aside right before I turned 13, and she inducted me into the story of our family. My grandma's still here. These lands right here, these are the lands that are woven into our story, the Mickle-John clan, my grandmother's line. When my grandmother thinks of where she comes from, where her family comes from, these lands are the land she thinks of. So this whole isle is ancestral lands for me, and my only remaining grandparent, Edna, these are hers. These are ours. These are our lands. I've just crossed the 100 miles to go mark, and it's kind of surreal, to be honest. Just a few more days and I'll be at the end. Well, we're properly in ancestral lands for me now. This is where my grandmother's family's from, north of Scotland. This is all country, moving into our story. Well, the sleeping bag has ripped in the night. I must have turned over at some point. This is it here. Yeah, all the duck down, I think it's duck down, is coming out. Sorry, Thomas. I'll have to replace that one for you, my friend. Also means I've got one night left. Just one night left with a sleeping bag that is losing its down, but I think we'll be okay. Coming to the end of things. Everything's kind of breaking and had enough now. Yeah, almost there though. I'm in my last 40 miles, maybe coming up on 35 miles actually, and I've come across this little stream. For these last 40 miles there's no towns or shops or houses even, for the most part. So I collected this water but it's a little bit yellow, so that's been my water for today. And I'm just gonna see if this water here is a bit cleaner. So I'm going to fill up this other bottle here, and we'll compare them. And if this water is a bit clearer, then I'm going to take that as a sign that this is my water for today at least. Okay, so this is the slight difference. So this is from earlier today, and this is the one I've just collected. Can you see the subtle color differences there? This one's got a little bit more discoloration. This one's a little bit clearer. So we'll empty this out and fill it up with this water as well. That's my water for the rest of today. I probably should note that I'm not using my survival straw anymore. I met a man in one of the bothies who had run 500 miles, no, 5,000 miles, the entire length of South America, and he was like, "Come on, brother, come on. We're in Scotland, you know. Like, if there's anywhere in the world where you can drink the water straight out of the stream, it's here." So we're doing that. I'm getting so over filming myself. so long, so far. Cool. Who are you going to be, Matthew? You're going to be the one that whinges about walking? Or are you going to actually have a regulated nervous system? A lot more than that. A lot more than that. It's been so windy. It's been so windy. So windy. Just buffering me in all directions. But mainly coming in from the front to make this last day, second last day, really hard. Today is the second last day. All going well. Whew. This is where I am. The wind is coming in from that direction. I found this little kinda, probably can't see it, but it's this little divot. I imagine cows would have slept in here at some point or something. Whatever the case, it keeps me out of the wind, which is going wild today. That's where I camped last night. Kinda somewhere base-ish on that thing, somewhere around about like here-ish on that mountain. Doesn't seem that far away. Feels like I've walked ages today. I've walked 19 kilometers already. And I think it's lunchtime. So let's have a bit of lunch. Right. My gosh. must properly stink. I've had a few showers, but I haven't washed my clothes since Hamish's. So that's about 3 weeks of unwashed clothes, just wearing the same stuff over and over again. Oh. Thank you, bag. Appreciate you. I couldn't have asked for a better second last day, really. It's been pretty flat, really, on this country road. I've probably passed 5 cars all day. It's been really spacious. And yeah, it's almost like a walking track, really. It's been really lovely coming up on Ben Hope, who I passed just a little while ago. Ben meaning mountain or mount here in Scotland, being Gaelic for mountain. And it's just nice to walk past Ben Hope, Mount Hope. It's wild that we're here. It's quite mind-blowing, actually, to think about everything that I've been through and all the stages of this journey, everyone who's been a part of it, all the moments where it kind of seemed like maybe it wasn't going to be able to happen. Even, before I began, how was I going to get the gear? I had no money to work with. How was I going to fund this thing? Had expenses in my business and my renting the house, and there was just so much that seemed like it was not going to line up. There was just so much that seemed like it didn't make sense to do this, and it wasn't going to work to do this. But here we are, just around the corner, really, in the grand scheme of things. So I'm going to say that in the same way that those first 2 days from Isle of Wight to Winchester was almost the beginning, this now feels like it's the end, the beginning of the end, right now. And this feels like the place for endings, the end of the Isle. We did it, guys. I'm here. Right at the end of it all. This thing has asked a lot from me. While I've been on this walk, I've come to the end of my relationship. I've run out of money. Just surviving on pounds. Literally in these last few days. So that's brought me to the end of my relationship. It's brought me to the end of my money. And it's brought me to the end of the Isle. That's not a death and a completion of a chapter of life. I don't know what is. I feel like this has been a real meaningful honouring of my grandfather, and I feel like that prayer of stirring renaissance and just beginning to stir the cauldron of cultural renewal. I feel like we've done that really well, just gently but well. In some ways, even though it's the end of the journey, in other ways it's the beginning of what comes next. The next chapter of work, the next chapter of cultural renaissance, the next stirring. It just continues through a lifetime, you know. That's how I live my life. It's never going to stop for me. Yeah, so I feel like we did this thing quite well, and my relationship with these isles has deepened and strengthened. I feel like I have a much greater sense and a much stronger bond with these lands. Yeah, I feel really grateful and blessed, actually, to get to have this intimacy, to kind of feel the greater organism of these lands, to feel the wider myth, the greater story, and not just kind of a little piece of it, but how it all dances together, how the waters flow together, how the ridge lines are all part of the same story in one way or another. Yeah, it feels like I've learnt the dreaming of these lands, and I feel more welcome now. I feel really welcomed, actually. Living much of my adult life in Australia, it's been a really big thing to adapt to living here in the British Isles, to somehow weave into the fabric of society here, of the story here. Has been quite a challenge, really. Just one last river to cross by the seams of things. Easy, nice. How special is this for the very last night? And that right there is Ben Hope. It's the final night. This is the final night. This is the last night. Night 71. Tomorrow, day 72. I've got 19 miles to go to walk into Durness, and I'm totally going to do it. It's quiet. Once I get over a little hill here, it's downhill and quite flat, really. Maybe some beautiful ocean walking some proper ocean walking for the first time in this whole journey along the spine up the middle. So it's the last night, and I don't know if I could have hoped for a better place to end, a better last night location. I got flat ground. I found a flat spot that isn't just like big mounds of grass that are really uncomfortable. This is flat. I'm going to sleep pretty well, I think, on this flatness, all going well, unless the skies open up in a wild way. But yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. And that right there is Ben Hope. Ben Hope in Gaelic. Ben means mountain or mount, or maybe peak, whatever the case. That's Ben Hope. The last night of this journey ends with hope. And I don't think there's a better way to end it. Maybe faith. Is there a Ben Faith out there? Hope's gonna do. Hope will do. Hope will do. That's the feeling, actually, that I have coming towards the end of this. It's a hope. I have a hope that what we've done here, what I've done here, and with the support of so many, that this actually means something in our communities and the wider tribes, that this pilgrimage up the spine leaves a little bit of a resonance in the field and the air, and others find their way to walking their pilgrimages and maybe even walking the spine at some point. I'd love to see dozens or hundreds, thousands over the coming years finding their moment where they walk the spine. I believe it was once upon a time a kind of a core pilgrimage of these lands, perhaps even a rite of passage that all beings who would step into leadership would take at some point. That's my sense of things. I hope that you've felt me in this journey, felt my willingness to do something that is uncommon in the name of love and to answer the sacred call. And I hope that, more than anything, I just hope that I get to be an example for you and for the next generation. I hope that you can find strength in this as you find your way to your own pilgrimages and rites of passages, and as you find the courage to answer the sacred calls that find their way to you. They're always going to be a little complicated and a little messy, not make all that much sense. It's not always linear. In fact, it rarely is. I have a real trust that this has been a proper send-off for my grandfather. Morning. Day 72. Don't really know what to say. Being the last morning of this whole journey, I think at this point I just need to get to the end. I made it to the last day. 21 miles that way. 21 miles that way is Durness. And I'm going to get there today. I'm packing up my bag for the last time. Doing a little tent clear out. And then onwards over this hill right here. You can kind of see this track over this hill. And in probably 2 or 3 hours, I'll be walking along the ocean, which I can't wait for. 11 miles left now. There's a wind at my back pushing me towards the ocean. Yeah, it's really easy walking. Whew. This is it, guys. This is the last, coming up on the last like 90 minutes. Inside the last 2 hours already. Whew. Yeah. That's the walking part of things done. I'm still gonna do a ceremony in Durness and have a really anchored closing to honour this whole journey and the prayer woven into it. Yeah, so it's going to be, even though I'm coming to the end of the walk today, I'm going to take the next 48 hours to really ground in what's been done. Yeah, just kind of anchor it in a little deeper. Can't believe today's the day and the moment is almost here. It's really surreal. It is really surreal. I feel like I did Scotland well too. I walked a lot and far, but I also took a lot of time, spacious time at particular key points with each of the vertebrae. I savoured it. I really savoured this time. Yeah, I've got better as I've walked. I feel like I've honoured this Scotland leg well. Alright, 90 minutes left. Let's do this thing. Miles left. Now that I'm here at the end of it all, I can't tell you how beautiful it is. Just absolutely stunning. Not a soul in sight, just me. And it's not just about the 72 days of thinking about this moment. This place is the perfect combination of Australia and everything that I love about this isle. The white sands, the mountains, the crystal clear water, like wild water too. All the aquas and the deep blues, jagged cliffs, sand dunes. Yeah, I just want you to know it's beautiful. More than beautiful. It's alive. It is alive.